I remember the day my investment account finally spit out $1,043 in a single month. I was sitting in my cubicle eating a sad desk salad when the notification hit my phone. I stared at the number for probably 5 full minutes. Not because it was life-changing money, it wasn't, but because for the first time in my adult life, money had appeared in my account without me trading hours for it. And that moment rewired my entire understanding of wealth. Here's what nobody tells you about passive income. We're all obsessed with the wrong number. Net worth is the headline stat everyone flexes on Twitter. 2 million in assets, 5 million, 10 million. Cool. Genuinely good for you. But here's the uncomfortable question. Can you eat net worth? Can you pay your electric bill with unrealized capital gains? The answer is obviously no. You need cash flow. You need actual dollars hitting your account on a predictable schedule. That's the only number that buys freedom. Most people think passive income works like a light switch. You're either broke and working, or you're rich and retired on a beach somewhere drinking drinks with tiny umbrellas. But that's not how this works at all. There's this entire gray zone in the middle that nobody talks about. It's the zone where you're still working, but the financial terror starts to fade, where you have options, where your boss loses power over you, and navigating that zone requires hitting very specific milestones. Just like the first 100,000 in net worth is mathematically the hardest to accumulate, the first $1,000 per month in passive income is the hardest to generate. It feels impossible. You're grinding, reinvesting, optimizing, and the needle barely moves. But once you cross certain thresholds, everything changes, not just financially, psychologically. Today, I'm breaking down the 3 monthly income targets that fundamentally alter your life, along with the actual math required to reach them. Let's start with milestone 1, validation. $1,000 per month, $12,000 per year. This is the number that proves the entire concept isn't just theoretical nonsense you read about on the internet. If you're going the traditional route, pure stock market investing using something conservative like the 4% rule or dividend yields, you need roughly $300,000 invested to generate this. Let me just say that again, $300,000 for 1,000 bucks a month. When you see it spelled out like that, it sounds absurd. It is absurd. That's why most people never get there using only the stock market. But here's where it gets interesting. You can reach this milestone significantly faster if you're willing to trade what I call sweat equity. This is where YouTube channels come in, digital products, rental properties, freelance retainers. These are what I call active passive income streams. They require work upfront, sometimes ongoing maintenance, but they generate cash flow that isn't directly tied to your hourly labor. A rental property needs occasional repairs, a YouTube video needs to be created, but once it's done, it pays you while you sleep, while you work your day job, while you're doing literally anything else. Why does 1,000 per month matter so much? Because it's proof of concept. It's the moment you stop reading about passive income and start living it. You realize this isn't a scam. It's not reserved for people with trust funds or tech stock windfalls. It's a system. And the system works. There's also a practical element here. $1,000 covers your groceries and utilities in most places. In a low cost of living area, it might even cover rent. It's not enough to quit your job. Not even close. But it's enough to feel the edges of the trap loosening. And if you don't spend it, if you reinvest that 1,000 every single month back into your assets, your compounding velocity doubles. You're not just adding your salary anymore. Your money is adding itself. This milestone is brutal. It's the hardest one to reach because you have the least leverage. You're pushing a car uphill in neutral, but once you crest that hill, momentum starts working for you instead of against you. Now we move to milestone 2, survival. Like $3,500 per month, $42,000 per year. This is often called lean financial independence in the personal finance world, and it's where life gets genuinely different. The math here requires somewhere between 600,000 and 800,000 in invested assets if you're using traditional methods, or if you prefer real estate, 2 to 3 rental properties owned free and clear. No mortgages, just cash flow. Why does this number matter? Because 3,500 per month covers what I call the big 3. Housing, food, and transportation. These are the expenses that create the fear. The rent is due, the fridge is empty, the car broke down. At 3,500 per month, those fears evaporate. You're not wealthy. You're not buying luxury cars or flying first class, but you are secure. Baseline survival is handled. This is the toxic job shield. If your manager's unbearable, if your company culture is poison, if you wake up dreading the commute, you can leave. You won't be homeless. You won't starve. You have a floor beneath you. That psychological shift is impossible to overstate. People with secure passive income at this level take bigger risks. They start businesses, they switch careers, they negotiate harder, and ironically, those behaviors often lead to even more income. You're not rich at this milestone, but you are free from the acute anxiety of total ruin. That's worth more than most people realize until they have it. Finally, milestone 3, abundance. $8,300 per month, $100,000 per year. This is where the math becomes almost obscene. To generate this passively, you need roughly $2 to $2.5 million invested. At this level, a 10% market year adds $250,000 to your net worth without you doing anything. You could take the entire year off, not earn a single dollar from labor, and your wealth would grow by $250,000. The psychological shift here is total decoupling of time and money. You are earning a 6-figure salary while you sleep, while you travel, while you sit on your couch watching bad television. At this level, you can afford almost any reasonable luxury without touching your principal. Nice dinners, international travel, a solid car. The lifestyle inflation that destroyed you earlier in life is now completely manageable. But here's what's critical to understand. The difference between milestone 2 and milestone 3 is luxury, nicer things, more comfort. The difference between milestone 1 and milestone 2 is survival. One is validation, the other is freedom from fear. Most people misunderstand what they're actually optimizing for. They're obsessed with net worth. They check their investment accounts daily, watching the number bounce up and down like a slot machine. But here's what nobody tells you. You can't eat net worth. You can't pay rent with a portfolio balance. What actually changes your life isn't the size of the pile, it's the income that pile generates. That's the difference between feeling wealthy on paper and actually living differently. Cash flow is oxygen. Net worth is just potential energy. And the journey from zero passive income to meaningful passive income isn't linear, it's exponential. But before we get to the exponential part, you have to survive the brutal slog of the early phase, because just like the first 100,000 in net worth is mathematically the hardest milestone to reach, the first $1,000 per month in passive income is going to test every ounce of discipline you have. Most people think passive income is binary. You either have a soul-crushing job where you trade time for money, or you're lounging on a beach in Bali while dividends roll in. But that's fiction. There's a massive gray zone in the middle, a twilight phase where you're generating income while you sleep, but you're not exactly retired. You're in this weird hybrid state where freedom is visible but not yet tangible. That gray zone has 3 specific levels, 3 monthly income thresholds where the math fundamentally rewrites your psychology and your options. Let's break them down with brutal honesty. The first target is $1,000 per month. $12,000 per year. This is what I call the validation milestone. Now, if you're doing this the traditional way through dividend stocks or index funds using something like the 4% rule, you need roughly $300,000 invested to generate $1,000 a month safely. 300 grand. That's not a small number. For most people starting from zero, that could take a decade of aggressive saving. But here's where it gets interesting. You don't have to do it the traditional way. You can reach this milestone faster using what I call active passive income. YouTube ad revenue, digital products, a single rental property with positive cash flow, an online course. These methods let you trade sweat equity upfront for recurring income on the back end. You're not buying the income with capital, you're building the income with labor, then stepping back. Why does this number matter? Because psychologically, $1,000 per month is proof of concept. It's the moment the theory becomes real. For years, you've been reading about financial independence, watching videos, running calculators, but until you see that first four-figure deposit hit your account from something other than your job, it's all abstract. 1,000 per month makes it concrete. You realize, oh, this actually works. I can actually do this. It stops being a fantasy and becomes a project. But there's a second reason this milestone is critical. $1,000 per month is a safety valve. In a low cost of living area, that covers rent. Anywhere in the country, it covers your groceries and utilities. If you lost your job tomorrow, 1,000 per month wouldn't replace your lifestyle, but it would keep you from being homeless. That psychological buffer is enormous. You start making different decisions. You negotiate harder at work because you're slightly less desperate. You take calculated risks because total ruin is no longer one paycheck away. And if you don't spend that 1,000, if you reinvest it back into assets, your compounding velocity doubles. You're no longer just contributing your salary, your money is contributing itself. This is where the exponential curve starts bending upward. But getting to this first milestone is brutal. It's the hardest one because you have the least leverage. You're pushing a boulder uphill in the mud. Every dollar you save feels insignificant. Every month of progress feels invisible. But once you crest that hill, momentum starts working for you instead of against you. Now let's jump to the second threshold. $3,500 per month. $42,000 per year. This is what the personal finance community calls lean financial independence, and this is where life genuinely transforms. The math here varies wildly depending on your strategy. If you're using boring index funds and the safe 4% rule, you actually need just over $1 million invested to hit this target. I know, that number hurts. But this is why the vehicle matters. If you prefer real estate, you can often reach this milestone with significantly less capital, roughly $600,000 to $800,000 in paid-off properties, because rental yields are typically higher than stock market dividends. You're trading more work for a lower capital requirement. Why does $3,500 per month matter? Because this number covers what I call the big three: housing, food, and transportation. These are the expenses that create existential fear. The rent is due, the fridge is empty, the car broke down. At $3,500 per month, those fears evaporate. You're not buying luxury cars, you're not flying first class, but baseline survival is handled. The floor beneath you is solid. This is what I call the toxic job shield. If your manager is unbearable, if your company culture is poisonous, if you wake up dreading the commute, you can leave. You won't be homeless. You won't starve. You have options. That psychological shift is impossible to overstate. People with secure passive income at this level take bigger risks. They start businesses. They switch careers. They say no to bad opportunities. And ironically, those behaviors often lead to even more income. You're not rich at this milestone, but you are free from the acute anxiety of ruin. That's worth more than most people realize until they have it. And then there's the third level, $8,300 per month, $100,000 per year. This is the abundance milestone, and the math becomes almost obscene. To generate this passively, you need roughly $2 to $2.5 million invested. At this level, a 10% market year adds $250,000 to your net worth without you doing anything. You could take the entire year off, earn nothing from labor, and your wealth would grow by $250,000. The psychological shift here is total decoupling of time and money. You are earning a six-figure salary while you sleep. while you travel, while you sit on your couch doing absolutely nothing productive. At this level, you can afford almost any reasonable luxury without touching your principal. Nice dinners, international travel, a solid car. The lifestyle inflation that destroyed you earlier in life is now completely manageable because your income grows faster than your spending ever could. But here's the critical distinction. The difference between Milestone 2 and Milestone 3 is luxury, nicer things, more comfort. The difference between Milestone 1 and Milestone 2 is survival. That's what most people don't understand when they're starting out. They look at someone pulling in $8,000 a month passively and think the journey from zero to that point is a straight line. It's not. The psychological distance between 0 and 1,000 per month is vastly different from the distance between 3,000 and 8,000. Let me explain why, because this is where most people give up too early. When you're at zero passive income, you're trading hours for dollars. Every single dollar you earn requires your physical presence somewhere doing something. If you stop showing up, the money stops. You're a human vending machine. Insert time, receive cash. That model has a hard ceiling because you only have so many hours in a day and your body eventually breaks down. Getting to that first milestone of $1,000 per month is psychologically brutal because you're trying to build something that doesn't yet exist while maintaining the thing that pays your bills. You're working your day job 40 hours a week, then coming home and building rental income or dividend portfolios or digital products for another 20 hours. You're essentially working two jobs, except the second job pays you nothing for months or even years. The math on this first milestone is deceptive. If you're going the traditional investment route with dividend stocks or index funds, you need roughly $300,000 invested to generate $1,000 per month at a conservative 4% yield. For most people starting from zero, accumulating $300,000 feels impossible. It takes years of aggressive saving, living below your means, saying no to vacations and new cars and dinners out. But here's where it gets interesting. You don't have to go the pure investment route. You can trade sweat equity for cash flow in the beginning. A YouTube channel that generates $1,000 per month doesn't require $300,000 in capital. It requires time, consistency, and skill development. Same with rental properties if you're willing to house hack or manage them yourself. Same with digital products, consulting, or freelancing that you systematically automate. The key insight is this. The first 1,000 per month is about proving the concept to yourself. It's about breaking the mental model that says money only comes from selling your time. Once you've generated $1,000 in a month from something that didn't require you to be physically present for 40 hours, your brain rewires. You start seeing opportunities everywhere. You realize the game is actually winnable. And here's the compounding effect nobody talks about. If you reinvest that first 1,000 per month instead of spending it, your velocity toward the next milestone doubles. You're not just saving from your job anymore. You're saving from your job plus your passive income. The snowball starts rolling. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Most people quit somewhere between 0 and 1,000 per month because the effort feels disproportionate to the reward. You're working 60-hour weeks between your job and your side project, and after 6 months, you've made $400 total. It feels like a joke. It feels like you're wasting your time. But you have to zoom out. That $400 represents the foundation. You're building infrastructure, you're learning skills, you're creating systems that will scale. The person who quits at $400 never discovers that months 7 through 12 often generate more than months 1 through 6 combined. They miss the inflection point where effort and results finally start to align. Once you crack 1,000 per month, the next milestone becomes mathematically easier, even though the absolute numbers are bigger. Going from 1,000 to 3,500 per month requires less than triple the effort because you now have momentum, knowledge, and systems. You're not starting from scratch. You're scaling what already works. At 3,500 per month, something profound happens. Your passive income covers your survival needs. This is the milestone where you stop being fragile. A job loss is no longer catastrophic. A medical emergency is manageable. You have breathing room. The constant low-level panic that characterizes financial insecurity starts to fade. People underestimate how much mental energy financial insecurity consumes. When you're worried about making rent, your brain is constantly running background calculations. Can I afford this? What if my car breaks down? What if I get sick? That cognitive load disappears at 3,500 per month. Suddenly you have bandwidth to think about bigger questions. What do I actually want to do with my life? What risks am I willing to take now that survival isn't on the line? This is where people start making bold career moves. They leave toxic jobs, they start businesses, they go back to school, they relocate to cities they actually want to live in. The passive income creates optionality, and optionality creates opportunity. The final milestone at 8,300 per month is where the math becomes almost absurd. At 2 million invested, a good market year adds $250,000 to your net worth without you doing anything. You're earning more from your assets appreciating than most people earn from their jobs. The compounding has reached escape velocity. But here's what I want you to understand. Don't obsess over milestone 3 when you're at 0. That's like someone who's never run a mile obsessing over qualifying for the Boston Marathon. It's theoretically possible, but it's not helpful right now. Your only job is to get to 1,000 per month. That's it. Prove to yourself that passive income is real and achievable. Everything else builds from there. The roadmap is simple. 1,000 per month validates the model. 3,500 per month buys your freedom. 8,300 per month buys abundance. But the first milestone is the only one that matters until you hit it. All the theory in the world means nothing if you quit before you generate your first 1,000. So here's my question for you. Where are you right now on this spectrum? Are you at 0 trying to figure out which vehicle to pursue? Are you at 500 per month wondering if you should keep going? Drop a comment and let me know, because I guarantee someone else is in the exact same spot, wondering if they're the only one struggling with this. The math works. The question is whether you'll stick around long enough to see it compound. Look, I'm not going to lie to you and say this is easy. The first 1,000 per month might take you 2 years of grinding. You'll question whether it's worth it approximately 700 times. You'll watch friends buy new cars while you're reinvesting every spare dollar into dividend stocks or fixing toilets in a rental property you manage yourself. It's going to suck sometimes. But here's what I know for certain. The math doesn't care about your feelings. It doesn't care if you're tired or discouraged or wondering if you're wasting your time. If you put in the work, if you stay consistent, if you don't quit 3 months before the breakthrough, you will hit these milestones. It's not motivational speech nonsense. It's arithmetic. Remember that video I did about how the first 100,000 in net worth is the hardest? Same principle applies here. That first 1,000 per month will consume 50% of your total effort. Maybe more. You're building from nothing. You're learning skills you don't have. You're making mistakes and correcting course. But once you crack it, once you prove to yourself that money can appear in your account without you being physically present somewhere, the second and third milestones become exponentially easier. The difference between someone making 0 passive income and someone making 8,000 per month isn't that one person is smarter or luckier. It's that one person didn't quit at $400. They didn't quit when it felt pointless. They understood that the journey isn't linear, it's exponential, and exponential curves look completely flat right up until they don't. So which milestone are you chasing right now? Are you trying to prove the concept at 1,000? Are you clawing your way to survival at 3,500? Or are you already past that, building toward abundance? Drop it in the comments, because I guarantee someone else is in the exact same spot, wondering if they're the only one finding this hard. You're not. The math works. You just have to stick around long enough to let it compound.